Last week we read that there's a mother wisdom, a mother will working in nature, and she has her hope to divinize clay, to help this world of matter and these bodies here to become divine, to be able to manifest the divine life. And that mother wisdom, that mother will, has once more put on an earthly shape. She has come and incarnated as Savitri. And we were reading about how this special child is born in the spring. At first, glimmering like an unshaped idea, passive she lay, sheltered in wordless sleep, involved and drowned in matter's giant trance. An infant heart of the deep caved world plan, in cradle of divine inconscience rocked by the universal ecstasy of the suns. Some missioned power in the half-wakened frame nursed a transcendent birth's dumb, glorious seed, from which this vivid tenement was made. But soon the link of soul with form grew sure. Flooded was the dim cave with slow, conscient light. The seed grew into a delicate, marvelous bud. The bud disclosed a great and heavenly bloom. At once she seemed to found a mightier race. Arrived upon the strange and dubious globe, the child, remembering inly a far home, lived guarded in her spirit's luminous cell, alone mid men in her diviner kind. Even in her childish movements could be felt the nearness of a light still kept from earth, feelings that only eternity could share, thoughts natural and native to the gods. As needing nothing but its own rapt flight, her nature dwelt in a strong, separate air, like a strange bird with large, rich-colored breast that sojourns on a secret fruited bough, lost in the emerald glory of the woods, or flies above divine, unreachable tops. Harmoniously she impressed the earth with heaven. aligned to a swift rhythm of sheer delight, and singing to themselves, her days went by. Each minute was a throb of beauty's heart. The hours were tuned to a sweet-toned content which asked for nothing, but took all life gave sovereignly as her nature's inborn right. Near was her spirit to its parent sun, the breath within to the eternal joy. You'll read, Rosa?
At first glimmering like an unshaped idea, passive she lay, sheltered in wordless sleep, involved and drowned in mother's giant trance, an infant part of the deep cave world plan in cradle of divine unconscious, rocked by the universal ecstasy of the Psalms.
So when the baby is born, it is still as if asleep. So that light that she has brought with her is glimmering, it's glowing faintly. He says it's like an idea which hasn't yet found its shape, an unshaped idea. Something is coming into the consciousness, but it hasn't taken form yet. But it's just giving a little light there. She's lying passively, sheltered in wordless sleep. So this infant child, passive to what happens, not reacting, not speaking any word. Her being is as if asleep. It's become involved in matter. It's come from those high conscious planes, but here it has entered into matter. It's drowned in this trance of unconsciousness of matter, this huge trance of the material world. She's there like an infant heart. An infant is a small baby, a child, but she's at the very heart, at the very center of the world plan. And because she's in the heart of matter, it's like a cave, a deep cave. She's resting, involved, surrounded by this material plane. She's being rocked. We rock a baby in its cradle. She's being rocked in this cradle of divine inconscience, this material universe. She's being rocked by the universal ecstasy of the suns. All the suns in the whole universe are pouring their light down, and that's giving some kind of vibration, and this is rocking, protecting and nourishing this special child who's at the very heart, at the very center of the world plan. Francesca, you like to read?
Some mission power in the half-wakened frame, nursed and transcendent births down glorious seed, for which this vivid tenement was made.
Thank you. So there's some power has been sent with her to look after her in the body, in this half-wakened frame. When Sri Aurobindo uses the word frame, he means this physical framework that the soul lives in. So some missioned power. Missioned means sent. It's been sent with that task of looking after her, nursing, looking after, nourishing the birth of this seed which has been planted in matter. The seed is dumb, it can't express itself yet. It's just a seed, it hasn't sprouted, but there's something glorious about it. It's transcendent. It has come from beyond the limits of manifestation into this world. And we read last time that instruments had been prepared for this great soul coming down. So that's this word tenement. A tenement is a place where you live. It's not really your house, you live there for some time. And he says this is a vivid tenement. It's full of color and brightness and energy. Tenements are often very drab and dull and not very nice places to be. But this frame, this house, this physical tenement which has been created for this child is full of life and beauty. Gunson?
But soon the link of the soul with the form grew sure. Clouded was the being cave with a slow, conscious light. The seed grew into a delicate, marvelous bud. The bud disclosed a great and heavenly bloom.
You could read the next line also.
At once, she seemed to pound a mightier ways.
Thank you. Yes. So that stage of sleep didn't last very long. Soon the link was established between the inhabiting soul and the body, the form. Soon the link of soul with form grew sure. Mother has talked about this in a general way, no? That a conscious soul, before the birth, it can prepare the body, can prepare the circumstances, everything that's favorable for the birth. But she says it often happens that descent into matter, she said it's like landing on your head. You lose consciousness for some time. And it may take time to wake up. So she says we can't exactly predict when that will happen. But sometimes it happens in very early infancy. We can look at the baby and it looks back at us and we can see the soul there watching. No? And then sometimes that gets clouded over by education and all the rest of it. So here he's saying that it soon happened. There was this stage of wordless sleep. There was a mission power taking care. But then the link of soul with form grew sure. It's not going to get broken. Nothing is going to happen. So the soul itself can take care. And that dim cave where we saw this deep caved world plan, it gets flooded with light. Gradually the light of consciousness grows, and that seed sprouts and grows into a delicate, marvelous bud. The bud is the beginning of the flower, before the flower opens and blooms, but it's the promise that the flower will come. And after some time, that bud opened, disclosed, revealed a great and heavenly bloom, the full blossom. And when that happens, at once, right from the very beginning, she seemed to found a mightier race. This is what she has come for, to be the founder of a greater race of beings beyond the ordinary humanity. Sri Aurobindo refers to it several times in the poem. So that could be seen even in the child, that there's something special, abnormal about her, as if she's the beginning of a new species, a more powerful, a more noble race than the human race. Do you like to read, Ma'am? Would you like to read?
Yes. Arrived upon the strange and dubious globe, the child remembering in land far home, lived born in her spirit's luminous self, alone with men in her diviner kind.
Thank you. So she's arrived, she's come to this globe, our earth, this strange globe. If you've come from the highest regions, it must seem like a very strange globe. And it's dubious. We don't know what its fate will be. It's full of doubt and uncertainty. But that child remembers inly, within herself, she remembers where she has come from. She remembers that far home. And she lives protected, guarded in that luminous cell. A cell is a small room where you can live. Monks and holy men, they will live in a cell. So her spirit creates this small living space for her, full of light. And in that way, she lives alone, protected, apart among ordinary human beings, in her diviner kind. Kind is also a word like race or species. But we could also say in her diviner way, in her diviner nature. She can live protected, untouched, protected by the greatness of her own spirit. Yuli, would you read?
Even in her childish movements could be felt the nearness of a light still kept from earth. Feelings that only eternity could share. Thoughts, nature, and native to the gods.
So this is the idea of at once, even as a child, even in her childish movements, could be felt the nearness, the closeness of a light that doesn't yet belong to earth. It's still kept from earth. She wants to bring that light here, but for the moment she's carrying it in herself. It's not a light that belongs to the earth. And she's containing within herself feelings that only eternity could share. Not the kind of feelings that ordinary human beings have, and thoughts that are natural and native to the gods, to the beings of the higher planes. Native, it means that you're born with it. No? So those gods, they have these great thoughts. They are natural to them in the same way she has these thoughts. They are natural and native to her in her divinity. And then he gives a beautiful picture, Joel, about Savitri's nature, what it's like. Would you read it, please?
Has needing nothing but its own rapt flight, her nature dwelt in a strong separate hair, like a strange bird with large rich colored breast, that sojourns on a secret fruited bough, lost in the emerald glory of the woods, or flies above divine unreachable tops.
So there's something so unusual and beautiful about Savitri's nature. She's like a wonderful bird, which has a beautifully, richly colored breast. And it lives by itself in the woods. It sojourns, it lives on a secret fruited bough, a bough that carries a lot of fruit. That feeds the bird, but yes, she can nourish herself on those secret fruits. A bough means the branch of a tree. So that bough is hidden, it's lost in the emerald glory of the woods. It's far away from ordinary people. It's in a beautiful secret place. Or that bird, when it's not sojourning on its secret fruited bough, it is flying. It has powerful wings. It can fly very high above these divine, unreachable tops, the tops of the forest and the tops of the hills, the mountains perhaps, on very high levels. So there's something that is keeping her high above the ordinary human level. Suresh, you like to read? Try and read.
Harmlessly she impressed the head with Bhavan, aligned to a sweet within of shed, blood, her sinking to principles, her days went by.
We can pause there, just those 3 lines. So what she's doing, she's impressing, she's making an imprint, a mark on the earth. She's impressing it with her heavenly power and qualities. And there's a happiness that she brings with her, a heavenly happiness. So the days of her life are passing quickly. They're aligned to a swift rhythm. They're passing quickly and singing to themselves. It's like as if the bird is singing, that bird of her nature. It's moving quickly through life and singing. So her days are carrying some happy song. Mahalingam.
Each minute was a throb of beauty's heart. The words were tuned to a sweet tone content, which asked for nothing but took all life in, sovereignly as her nature's inborn trait.
So happiness and beauty. Each minute was a throb. Our heart throbs, no? It beats. So each minute was like a throb, a beat of beauty, of the heart of beauty. And the hours, her hours, were tuned. They were like we tune an instrument so that it's in harmony. They are tuned to content. Content is a kind of quiet happiness. When we just feel that things are as they should be. Sweet toned. So it's like a note of music. Something peaceful and sweet. That content isn't short of anything. It doesn't lack anything. It doesn't need to ask for anything. It asked for nothing, but accepted, happily accepted everything that life gave, sovereignly. As a ruler, as a queen, accepts all the gifts that people bring, all the worship that people bring. That's her due. She's been born to receive all that. So she accepts it in a gracious, smiling way. Her nature's inborn right. This is her right that's born with her. Vera, would you read?
Near was her spirit to its parent son, the breath within to the eternal joy.
Thank you. So her spirit is near to its parent sun. Savitri's name means daughter of the sun. Yeah? And this sun is the Savitri aspect. That means the sun before it rises above the horizon. So she's bringing the new light of the new sun, the new divine illumination. So her spirit is closely connected with that sun from which she has come and which she's bringing with her. And the breath within, this is a capital B, this is the prana, the life energy within her, is near to the eternal joy, the ananda, which is natural to the highest planes. So, you like to read, sir?
Yes. The first prayer, life that breaks from nature's swoon, mounts in a line of rapture to the skies. Absorbed in its own happy urge, it lives, sufficient to itself, yet kind to all. It has no sane communion with its world, no open converse with surrounding things.
Thank you. So here he's comparing Savitri's growth to the growth of, in spring, the first beautiful living plants that spring up from the earth. So that's the first beautiful, fair means beautiful life that breaks out of this swoon, this sleep of nature in matter. The first life that emerges, he says, it moves straight upwards towards heaven. Its impulse is to go straight up. And it is full of rapture, of delight, intense delight. And it just lives in its own happy urge to go higher and higher towards the light, towards the sky. It's sufficient to itself. It's can live in itself. It doesn't need any help. Everything that it needs is in itself. And yet it's aware of everything around it. It's turned to all. But there's no obvious relationship or communication with the world. It has no open converse. Converse is a conversation. No? It doesn't speak. It lives its own life, and yet it's aware of everything around. So Sri Aurobindo is going to develop this idea of the plant growing straight up to heaven. Dhanalakshmi.
There is a oneness, native and occult, that needs no instruments and erects no form. In unison, it grows with all that is.
He's telling us that in the plant there's a oneness. It's connected. That oneness is hidden, but it belongs to the plant. It's connection with the whole. And it doesn't need any instruments. We tend to feel ourselves separated from the world around us, no? And in order to be in communication with the world, we need our senses, we need our mind and brain to interpret. That's how we are in communication. We need instruments for that. But he says this first fair life, it doesn't need any instruments. And it doesn't build up any form to be in contact with the world. It's just growing in unison with all that is. When we sing in unison, we are all singing the same note in tune. So the first fair life, the plant, when it starts to grow, it is like that. It's in tune, in harmony with everything around. You like to read, sir, at the back? Would you read? Yes?
That's right. All contacts it assumes into its trance. Love toast consents to the wind's kiss.
The wind's kiss.
Wind's kiss and takes, transmutantly the shocks of sun and breeze. A blissful yearning rides in its leaves. A magic passion trembles in its blooms. Its flowers aspire in hushed felicity.
Thank you. So it's a little sapling going up. It's going to become a tree. And it's aware of everything around it. It draws all the contacts with its environment. It assumes, it takes it into its trance, its kind of awareness, concentrated awareness. And it just accepts the wind and the sunshine, laugh-tossed. It's as if the wind is laughing and that plant moves with the laugh, that kiss of the wind. And it takes all these shocks from outside, these impacts, the rays of the sun, the breeze, all these different contacts. It takes them transmutingly. It takes them into itself and transmutes, changes them, digests them into part of its own substance. And of course that's how plants make their food, no? From sunlight and the water that's in the air and the moisture and all that. And he says it puts out leaves, many leaves. he says, a blissful yearning. It's full of bliss, of rapture, but there's also a longing, yearning, wishing for something that gets expressed in the leaves as they grow. And he says riots. You can only have a riot if there's a lot of people, and then they move around. So the leaves of the plant, they do that. They move in the wind joyfully, happily. And then it puts out flowers, a magic passion. There's an intense feeling, trembling in its blooms, in its blossoms. And eventually it puts out branches, and those branches are aspiring. They're pointing up towards heaven, praying, but quietly, in hushed felicity, with happiness in a silent way. They don't make a lot of noise. So that's what's really going on in the plants around us. And in the next part of the passage, Sri Aurobindo tells us how that can be. How that can be. How is that consciousness there in the plant, these feelings, this happiness? Would you read?
Yes. And what could good head of this beauty is called? The spirit and intimate guest of all this charm. His sweetnesses raised us, and his deep reveries new.
So the cause of all this, of this life going straight up to heaven, in that way he's described, the cause of it is a hidden divine being. Is the cause of this beauty. That occult Godhead, that spirit, is the spirit and intimate guest. It's living as a guest within that beautiful form of all this charm. This being is the priestess. She's the one who is connecting the form with its divine origin. She's looking after, taking care of this sweetness. And she is the muse of this reverie, the dream which is inspiring this life. The muse is the divine, the goddess, who inspires a poet or a musician. So living within the plant, nurturing the plant, is this occult Godhead. Anjali, you'd read?
This will product from Bhavan, since the dryad gives present in a deeper way, and it feels another layer of storms under comets. And brilliance mingled with majesty day.
Thank you. So the dryad is the spirit of the tree. I think in India we call them yakshas. The spirit of the tree. The dryad is the ancient Greek word. There were spirits of trees, dryads, and naiads, spirits of the streams and the springs, and there are others also. So this dryad, she is not experiencing and she's not nourished by the physical world. She lives, she's drenched, she's soaked. When it rains very heavily, we can get drenched, all the way through all our clothes. We feel we are soaked to the bone. But the dryad is being pervaded by a deeper ray, not the rays of the sun, the rays of a subtler world. And she's feeling another air, not the wind, not the physical wind, but another air where there are also storms and calms, as there are in our air. But this is a subtler air, and she quivers inwardly with mystic rain, so that she's growing, living on a subtler level. And then Sri Aurobindo says, this at a heavenlier height was shown in her. So he's giving all this as an image for the way in which Savitri is living inwardly in her own atmosphere, in contact with subtler realms, and the body that is seen outside is an expression of that occult Godhead. So he's speaking, he gives us this image that this is what is true for the trees. But he says, at a heavenlier height, in a higher way, this is true also for Savitri. She's growing straight up to heaven, and she's responding to everything around her with delight, with calm, nourishing, transmuting everything that comes to her into her own nature. And for the plant, that's possible because of the dryad, the nature spirit who's living in the tree. But in Savitri's case, it's her own highest nature which is making all this possible. Deva, would you read?
Even when she went to meet earth's intimatics, her spirit kept the stature of the gods. It stopped, but was not lost in matter's way.
So she's living among people, she's living here on the earth. So sometimes she has to bend down from her high realm. So even when she bent down to meet the intimacies, the warm relationships that are happening here on earth, her spirit still kept the stature, the height, that high form of the gods. It stooped down, it bent down, but it didn't lose itself in the rule of matter. She doesn't become assimilated. Patricia.
A world translated was her gleaming mind, and marvel mooned, bright, crowding fantasies, fed with spiritual sustenance of dreams, the ideal goddess in her house gold.
Translated, of course, the most, we're used to using this word when we take these lines and put them into another language. In a wider sense, translated means to express something in another form. And in fact, that's what our mind is doing for us. It takes in these impressions and it we get mental images of it. So she sees the world around her, and she translates it in her mind, which is full of light, in her own way, in terms of her own understanding. And not only the world around, but also wonderful imaginations, bright, crowding fantasies, wonderful dreams, imaginations. They are marvel mooned. A marvel is something wonderful. A moon, particularly in the Indian poetic tradition, it's this special magical light that's connected with delight, with coolness and beauty and enjoyment. So these bright, crowding fantasies are feeding with spiritual sustenance of dreams. Sustenance is food. This is dream food. And dreams are very, very important to us when we're growing. The quality of our dreams is very important. So this ideal goddess living in her house of gold, this beautiful form that's been prepared for her, is being fed on all this inner life, on the images in her gleaming mind and the fantasies, the dreams, which is, these are the things which are nourishing her as she grows. So we'll stop there for today. We can read these beautiful lines together. At first, glimmering like an unshaped idea, passive she lay, sheltered in wordless sleep, involved and drowned in matter's giant trance. An infant heart of the deep-caved world plan, in cradle of divine inconscience wrought by the universal ecstasy of the suns. Some missioned power in the half-wakened frame nursed a transcendent birth's dumb, glorious seed, for which this vivid tenement was made. But soon the link of soul with form grew sure. Flooded was the dim cave with slow, conscient light. The seed grew into a delicate, marvelous bud. The bud disclosed a great and heavenly bloom. At once she seemed to found a mightier race. Arrived upon the strange and dubious globe, the child, remembering inly a far home, lived guarded in her spirit's luminous cell, alone mid men in her diviner kind. Even in her childish movements could be felt the nearness of a light still kept from earth, feelings that only eternity could share, thoughts natural and native to the gods. As needing nothing but its own rapt flight, her nature dwelt in a strong, separate air, like a strange bird with large, rich-coloured breast that sojourns on a secret, fruited bough, lost in the emerald glory of the woods, or flies above divine, unreachable tops. Harmoniously she impressed the earth with heaven, aligned to a swift rhythm of sheer delight, and singing to themselves her days went by. Each minute was a throb of beauty's heart. The hours were tuned to a sweet-toned content, which asked for nothing but took all life gave sovereignly as her nature's inborn right. Near was her spirit to its parent sun, the breath within to the eternal joy. The first fair life that breaks from nature's swoon mounts in a line of rapture to the skies. Absorbed in its own happy urge it lives, sufficient to itself, yet turned to all. It has no seen communion with its world, no open converse with surrounding things. There is a oneness native and occult that needs no instruments and erects no form. In unison it grows with all that is. All contacts it assumes into its trance. Laugh-tossed consents to the wind's kiss and takes transmutingly the shocks of sun and breeze. A blissful yearning riots in its leaves, a magic passion trembles in its blooms, its boughs aspire in hushed felicity. An occult Godhead of this beauty is cause, the spirit and intimate guest of all this charm, this sweetness's priestess, and this reverie's muse. Invisibly protected from our sense, the dryad lives drenched in a deeper ray, and feels another air of storms and calms, and quivers inwardly with mystic rain. This, at a heavenlier height, was shown in her. Even when she bent to meet earth's intimacies, her spirit kept the stature of the gods. It stooped, but was not lost in matter's reign. A world translated was her gleaming mind, and marvel-mooned bright crowding fantasies fed with spiritual sustenance of dreams the ideal goddess in her house of gold.